long time, and a lot of stuff has happened between now and then. I believe South Carolina talked to him on maybe that Saturday night, I'm thinking, and then Agent Johnson had talked to them sometime Sunday.
Yes, sir.
We discussed that, and somebody made contact with the father, and I can't tell you who. It was not me, but someone made contact with him, which I thought was a great idea. And yes, sir. So someone in law enforcement had contact with his father.
And you met with them on the afternoon of the 7th before you went and met with Tim Jr., right?
Right. I met the father before I met the son. I sure did.
And I assume that you were aware of the anguish that Tim Sr. and Julie were in at that point, not knowing where their grandbaby.
Certainly. I felt their emotions. I sure did.
So, and they were, is it fair to say that they were impassioned about wanting to help you?
They were. There was no coercing, no nothing. It was just a genuine concern for their grandchildren.
Yes, sir. And for their son too, right?
Certainly for their son. He was not only a good grandfather. Apparently, he was a good father.
And it wasn't an easy process when you went into, or when Tim Jr. was brought into the room. There was a lot of emotion between
It was. It really was. Yes, sir.
And they went back and forth for a while. And that sometimes they would be calm, and then sometimes they would be seemingly angry at one.
Yeah, the father, he remained calm. He did. He impressed me. The anguish was coming mostly from the son, not the father.
Yes, sir. And there was significant headway made in the investigation of this case in that interview on the 7th. Would you agree with that?
A lot of headway was made.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And you would give Tim Sr. and Julie significant credit for that headway that was made.
I would. Sure would.
And you saw Tim Sr. and Julie demonstrate tremendous strength for their grandbabies.
I did.
And that was when they maybe still had some hope that they were still alive. They demonstrated strength, or you saw them demonstrate the strength through that process.
I did. We all had that hope.
And even after information came out that indicated that your hopes were probably tragically going to be dashed, they still showed strength for their grandbabies.
They did.
Because they wanted them to be brought home.
Regardless.
Yes, sir. And you saw them be strong for Tim Jr. too.
I did.
And you feel for them, don't you?
I did feel for him. Still do feel for him.
Yes, sir. I have just one moment, Your Honor. Sheriff, thank you for all your work on this case.
Thank you, sir.
Real quick. Sheriff,
Yes, sir.
talk about all your experience in dealing with drugs. And since this incident, you've had other dealings with spikes, correct?
We have.
That evening on the 7th, did you see any red flags based on your experience about mental health?
No, sir. We're in a rural county, and all states may be this way, but the sheriff ends up with the commitments for mental health. We end up having to handle those people. That's our job. We get an order from our chancery court system, and so we handle a lot of mentally ill patients. We do.
You didn't see that night?
No, sir, I didn't see that.
what you saw, Mr. Jones, you mentioned the time, was it just that time when you mispronounced the name, or was it every time he brought up the time?
Well, he really got angry, and it may have, you know, he got angry every time that, even if I pronounced that name right, that triggered something in him, in my opinion. But I saw that every time that little Nahtahn, I think he was 6 years old. I believe he was a 6-year-old. Every time his name was mentioned.
That's what caused you concerned about it, one of them's dead.
It really did. That concerned me a lot.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes,
Step down.
Yes, sir.
Big call's Keith McMahon.
You swear upon me, testimony you give this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
If you'll have a seat, please, over there, state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Keith McMahon. Last name is spelled McMahon.
Mr. McMahon, where are you currently employed?
I'm employed by the Mississippi Forensics Laboratory and work at the Meridian Regional Branch of that laboratory.
What is your position there?
I'm a forensic scientist specializing in the field of drug analysis.
Would you tell the jury about your background and education and training in that field?
Sure. I earned an Associate of Applied Science degree from East Central Community College in Decatur, Mississippi in May of 1992, and then earned a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in chemistry and a minor in biology from the University of Mississippi in December of 1998. I then completed a formal training program at the Mississippi Forensics Laboratory, and I've achieved certification through the American Board of Criminalistics.
Have you ever been qualified before as an expert in the field of controlled substance examination?
Yes, sir.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 110 times.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer Mr. McMahon as an expert in the field of controlled substance examination.
Okay.
No objection, so qualified forensic drug examination? Is that what you offered him as? A drug analyst?
Thank you. Agent McMahon, do you remember being involved with analyzing a can and some contents of a foil package that came from Smith County in September of 2014?
Yes, sir, I do.
Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 58 and ask if you recognize it, and if you need to go in the bag, let me know, and I'll get a pair of scissors or a knife so you can go inside.
I can recognize it.
From previous testimony, an officer with Smith County took that bag and brought it to an employee at your agency by the name of Stephanie Baskin. Do you recognize her name?
I do.
And would you describe what Ms. Baskin does for your agency?
Ms. Baskin receives evidence from law enforcement agencies into the crime laboratory system.
So when she received that item in your hand, States 58 actually came to you once she had received it in, is that correct?
Whenever evidence is brought into the laboratory, each case is given a unique Mississippi Forensics Laboratory case number and a unique barcode within that case number. Then a barcode with that information is generated and placed on the evidence. The evidence then will go into our vault, and it will eventually be assigned to the specific analyst that needs to work it. And then when that analyst gets ready to work it, they'll request it from the vault.
And at some point, did you retrieve that item from the vault?
Yes, sir.
And when you retrieved it, was it properly sealed with no evidence of it being tampered since the time that the Smith County officer had brought it in?
That is correct.
Could you describe to the jury what you do next?
Once the case is assigned to me and I'm ready to work the evidence, I go to the vault, and one of the evidence technicians then pulls the evidence. They check it out to me. I then take it to the laboratory. If I'm ready to analyze it, then I'll go ahead and inspect the contents of the bag, compare it to the submission form from when it was received into the laboratory, make sure everything matches up there. Then I open the bag and take samples from it for analysis.
Would you describe what you found in the contents of the bag when you opened it and did your examination in comparison to what was submitted?
Inside the bag, there was a can that had been crushed on one side, had like a concave place in it, made so that it could be used as a smoking device. And there were also 2 foil packs that contained a plant material.
Would you describe the foil packs for the jury?
They were zippered foil packs, and on the outside, they had Scooby Snacks written on the outside.
It states 58 contains both of those items, the can that you just discussed and also the packages of described the Scooby Snack material inside of it.
Yes, sir.
And in referring to those items in your analysis, how did you describe those items? I believe the can was denoted as, how did you designate the can in your report?
In my report, the can was designated as an aluminum can.
And that would have been submission 1-B.
Yes, sir.
Now 1-A was described as the 2 bags of Scooby Snacks, is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I designated that as 2 full packets in the report.
Going through each one separately, let's start with the can. That would be 1-B. Would you describe to the jury what you did as far as any type of testing on that?
I did 2 tests on the can. The first was a retention time test, which comes from an instrument called a gas chromatograph, or we just call it GCMS for short. Different compounds will take differing amounts of time to go through this instrument from the time it is injected until the time it is detected. That time is called the retention time. That is one of the tests that I used. This compound then, after it goes through the gas chromatograph, then goes into an instrument called a mass spectrometer. The mass spectrometer will fragment a molecule in predictable times each and every time. Each and every time it sees that compound, it will fragment it the same way. I can then use that fragmentation pattern, which is printed out on a graph, along with the retention time to identify the compound.
And how did you actually, from the can itself, how did you actually get something out to analyze?
I took a cotton swab, soaked it with methanol, and then in the area where they would have had the substance to heat it, to be able to smoke it, I swabbed that area. Then I took that swab and put it in a tube, diluted it a little bit more with methanol. I'll put that methanol into a small vial that then goes on that instrument, the GC, where it is sampled by an auto sampler that is on the instrument.
And what were the results of your examinations as far as the contents of the can?
The can contained a residue amount of a substance called AB pinaca.
And if I call that a synthetic cannabinoid, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In general terms, what's a synthetic cannabinoid?
A synthetic cannabinoid is a stimulant substance, psychoactive substance that is somewhat similar to marijuana, but not exactly.
Do you know how that it's made or produced?
Typically, the way it's made is some innocuous plant material. It could be from the marshmallow plant. It really doesn't matter what type of plant it is. They'll take the AB pinaca chemical and then spray it on this plant material and let it dry. Or sometimes they can mix it in a tub with plant material, then take it out and let it dry. The plant material itself is simply a carrier for the controlled substance.
Going back to submissions 1A, which were the 2 foil packs of Scooby snacks.
Yes, sir.
Describe what, if any, tests you performed on them.
Again, on this submission, I performed the same 2 tests that I mentioned before, the retention time from the GC and also the mass spectrometry test.
Now, there were 2 bags that came to you. Were the bags opened or unopened when they came to you? Specifically, I'm talking about the foil Scooby Snacks bags.
I don't have it indicated in my notes if they were already opened or not.
Were you able to determine the amounts of the material within those bags?
Yes, sir.
And how much plant-like material was inside those 2 foil bags?
The total amount in both bags was 3.765 grams
That's combined.
combined. Yes, sir.
And you said you performed the same test on that material as you performed on the residue from the can, correct?
That is correct.
Would you tell the jury which the results were of your examination of the plant-like material itself?
The results of the plant-like material in submission 1A were AB Panaka also.
Thank you, Agent. Please answer any questions the defense has.
I'm good. How are you?
So, you said that AB Panaka is a synthetic cannabinoid and it is similar to marijuana, correct?
That's correct.
And I guess the difference is it is a full agonist to the CB1 receptor, where marijuana is only a partial agonist. Is that correct?
Sir, to get into the effects in the human body of the substance is a little bit outside of my expertise.
Okay, so that's not something you know.
Correct.
And AB Panaka was not put on a federal ban list until sometime in 2015. Is that correct?
That's possible around that time. I think you are correct.
But in Mississippi, it was a little bit earlier.
Correct.
You think July,
July the 1st of 2014.
and that kind of mirrors the legislative sessions. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right.
Just one more question.
All right.
Agent McMahon, just to be clear, AB1 Panaka was illegal in your state in September of 2014.
Yes, sir, it was.
Thank you.
All right. Let me step down. Yes, ma'am.
May it please the court, Your Honor, at this time we have the matter of stipulation. At this time we offer State's Exhibit 70 as evidence, being the results of the blood toxicology test of the defendant, Timothy Jones Jr., and request the court's instruction on that stipulation of evidence.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you understand, a stipulation is an agreement. We agree that this is fact. Today is Friday. They can agree to that. That's a stipulation. Stipulation in regard to Exhibit 70 is blood sample was collected from Timothy Ray Jones Jr. on September 7th, 2014 at about 10 a.m. in the morning. Blood sample was sent to a toxicology lab known as NMS Labs for testing. Results of the testing were positive for AB Panaka.
Thank you, Your Honor, and State's Exhibit 70. The state calls Lieutenant Dustin Smith. Raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you report is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So let me see that. Please state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Lieutenant Dustin Smith. Sorry.
Oh, you do something she can't, she's not ready for it.
Okay, I apologize.
She got 2 hands and 2 feet and needs 2 more.
Yeah, please, the court. Lieutenant Smith, can you state your full name for the record?
Sure. My name is Lieutenant Dustin Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're currently employed, and in what capacity.
I am the current forensic toxicology supervisor and chief toxicologist at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, commonly known as SLED.
What can you tell us about your educational background that led you to the field of toxicology?
Sure. I have a bachelor's of science in biology with a minor in chemistry from the College of Charleston. Since that point, I have undergone extensive internal and external training, both within the forensic toxicology laboratory at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division and at multiple courses and classes outside of the laboratory. I am also a member of the Technology Working Group through the National Institute of Justice. I sat on the most recent quorum to determine the best practices for forensic DUI casework, sponsored by the National Safety Council. And I am certified as a fellow of the American Board of Forensic Toxicology.
All right. And Lieutenant Smith, if you could hold the microphone just a little bit.
Sorry.
You mentioned that you are chief toxicologist at the State Law Enforcement Division.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
What does that job entail?
So I oversee the toxicology department. I oversee the day-to-day operations from budget and personnel. I also am responsible for the training of new technicians and toxicologists. I'm responsible for method development and validation in the laboratory, and I'm responsible for reviewing all casework that involves any drug work before those finalized reports are released back to the submitting agencies.
Is it possible to give us an overview of your training in the field of forensic toxicology?
Like I said before, I have undergone extensive training inside and outside. So inside the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Toxicology Department, I have been certified as a forensic toxicologist. Externally, I routinely attend the Society of Forensic Toxicologists meetings where there are courses that keep me current with the field of forensic toxicology. I have attended both the Borkenstein alcohol and driving and drugs and driving courses and postmortem coursework.
And Lieutenant Smith, can you tell us whether or not you have been qualified previously as an expert in the field of forensic toxicology?
Yes, I have.
Is it possible to estimate how many such times you've been qualified as an expert in courts of South Carolina?
Approximately 100 times.
Your Honor, at this time, the state offers Lieutenant Dustin Smith as an expert in the field of forensic toxicology.
No more, Doc? All right. Lieutenant Smith is qualified as an expert in the field of forensic toxicology, may testify and offer opinions in that field because of his training and experience.
So, Lieutenant Smith, I want to start by asking about this drug. We've heard some about it this morning, specifically synthetic cannabis.
Okay, so just to kind of go over briefly what synthetic cannabis or synthetic cannabinoids are. It's the same thing as spice or K2. Those are kind of colloquial terms for it. Synthetic cannabinoids were first produced in order to create a legal alternative to marijuana. The first compounds that were produced very closely mirrored the effects of marijuana. They had very similar psychoactive effects. They interacted with the same receptors and to the same extent as marijuana does. As those compounds began becoming scheduled or becoming illegal, the clandestine drug manufacturers would move on to another suite of compounds. And the next suite of compounds had effects that were also similar but not quite the same. And then the next set would get a little bit further from the true marijuana effects, and then so on and so on. At this point, we're to the 10th or 11th or 12th iteration of those compounds. It's a revolving door. As soon as one suite of compounds becomes established, the governments will make the determinations that those are dangerous. They will make those illegal, and then the clandestine labs will create new drugs after that.
Lieutenant Smith, was AB Panaka ever one of the drugs contained within synthetic cannabis?
Yes, it was.
And today in South Carolina, is this drug, AB Panaka, legal or illegal?
It is federally illegal.
When did it become a controlled substance in South Carolina?
It became a controlled substance through the federal government on January 1st, 2015.
Prior to that, in January 2015, do you know or have personal knowledge through your education and training whether this drug was sold in South Carolina at head shops and things of that nature?
We certainly did see it in our casework, yes.
Lieutenant Smith, have there been published studies on the effects of AB Panaka among professionals in your field?
There have been. The studies are limited, but there have been studies. Like I said before, the problem with synthetic cannabinoids and the study of synthetic cannabinoids is that they don't hang around for long.